At 7 years old, Jillian Lynn earned the nickname Wrigglebottom because she couldn't sit still at school. As a result, her teachers believed she had a learning disability and asked Jillian's mother to take her to the doctor. During the visit, the doctor left the room to speak with Jillian's mother in private, but before leaving, the doctor turned on the radio. While watching Jillian alone in the room, they saw her jumping and spinning to the music. That's when the doctor looked at Mrs. Lynn and said, "There is nothing wrong with your child. She is a dancer." For treatment, he recommended that Mrs. Lynn put Jillian in dance school. Jillian went on to have an incredibly successful career as a dancer, choreographer, and director. During her lifetime, she worked with the Royal Ballet, London Palladium, and Broadway. I believe that Jillian's story contains an important lesson, and that is, we are often too quick to assume that people are broken. Sadly, I think the modern-day mental health narrative is only making this problem worse. Let me explain. Between 2002 and 2019, the number of US adults receiving mental health treatment or counseling increased by 148%. A once rather private and secretive treatment has become part of popular culture. Many celebrities, including Dwayne Johnson, Halle Berry, and Ellen DeGeneres, have opened up about their struggles with mental health. Also, a new genre of self-help books, like Mark Manson's The Subtle Art and Lori Gottlieb's Maybe You Should Talk to Someone, have helped people ease into the topic. Now, in many ways, this is great news, and that's because spreading the mental health narrative increases the odds that people who need help will get it. But with every upside comes potential downsides, and the mental health narrative has its downsides. So in this video, I want to explain what the mental health narrative gets wrong, what problems that creates, and then share some helpful ideas for dealing with difficult emotions. What's good for the goose is not always good for the gander. In the game of telephone, people pass a message around a circle by whispering it into the ear of the person sitting to their left. This process continues until the message returns to the person who created it. If you've ever played this game, you know that the original message and the final message are rarely the same. And that's because what people say and what people hear often varies. So while it's good that the mental health narrative is spreading, its message is not immune to the game of telephone. You see, what begins as a helpful idea from a therapist often evolves into something completely different as it spreads, and this is a big problem. Now, for context, imagine what would happen if the message, chemotherapy is good for people with cancer, became chemotherapy is good for people. Let's talk about where the narrative goes wrong. A subset of mental health disorders known as anxiety disorders are characterized by strong negative emotions like anxiety, sadness, and fear. People suffering from these conditions experience emotions so intense that they interfere with their daily lives. So someone with social anxiety disorder may experience so much anxiety in social interactions that they avoid leaving their home. While it's good for people with these conditions to change their relationship with negative emotions, that doesn't mean that everyone should do the same thing. Unfortunately, a poorly spread narrative about these conditions has led many people to believe that all negative emotions are bad. And this message is wrong, and it leads to two big problems. Problem number one is the spiral. If you think that all negative emotions are bad, it leads you to believe that there's something wrong with you anytime you experience them. This belief tends to create problems where problems don't exist. Let me explain. Assume someone without a mental health disorder ends a 10-year romantic relationship. Now, after the initial shock of the breakup, they begin to feel lonely because they miss communication, intimacy, and spending the holidays with someone they love. Now, while it's completely normal to feel this way, a poorly spread narrative leads you to believe that it's wrong to feel lonely. For example, how often have you heard the saying, "You'll never find love until you're happy alone"? You see, messages like this are harmful because they suggest that negative emotions are the problem. They say you're single because you feel lonely. Now, if you think this way, you can quickly enter the spiral. Here's what that looks like. Instead of recognizing that it's normal to feel lonely during the holidays and getting on with life, you feel bad for feeling bad. Then you beat yourself up for feeling lonely because you believe feeling lonely is the reason you're single. Before long, you begin to worry about feeling lonely in the future. Next, you might try to control your emotions, which typically only makes them worse, and ultimately leaves you feeling angry and resentful about your situation. Unfortunately, this problem isn't limited to loneliness. The downward spiral can turn any negative emotion into a perpetual cycle of anxiety, guilt, and sadness. For context, imagine what would happen if a widow believed it was wrong to feel sad. I think it's very important to talk about the spiral because I believe it's at the root of many mental health problems. I think everyday normal people feel emotions like sadness or anxiety, and then because they believe it's wrong to feel these emotions, they enter the spiral. As a result, normal emotions spin completely out of control and become mental health problems. Problem number 2 is the illusion of control. The first question most people have when they believe that negative emotions are wrong is, how do I stop them? Now, unfortunately, a part of the mental health narrative suggests that this is possible. Messages like stop negative thoughts, end anxiety, and always be happy are everywhere. Personally, I believe this is one of the most harmful ideas in modern therapy. And I say that because feeling negative emotions is a normal and natural part of the human experience. Even though negative emotions are painful to experience, they're critically important. We evolved to feel negative emotions because they help us survive. Fear lets you know when you're in danger. You remember the pain of the past because it contains important lessons, and you worry about the future because your survival depends on it. When dealing with other people, loneliness motivates you to return to the group, and jealousy acts as a warning sign that an important relationship may be at risk. When you tell people they can control their emotions, you set them up to fail, and that's because it's impossible to control your emotions. Ultimately, I believe the illusion of control is the reason that many people enter the spiral. So the main takeaway here is this: it's normal to feel nervous before a first date, sad when your dog dies, or lonely after a divorce. And if you feel this way, there's nothing wrong with you. It just means you're human. Okay, here are 3 ideas that can help you deal with negative emotions. Idea number 1 is, don't let negative emotions influence your behavior. Negative emotions become a problem when they take over your life or lead to poor decisions. And this typically happens when you let negative emotions influence your behavior. If you're single and lonely, feeling lonely by itself isn't a problem. But if feeling lonely causes you to isolate yourself at home and avoid going on dates, that is a problem. The best way to correct this problem is by learning to take positive action despite how you feel. So if you have the goal of falling in love and getting married, you can continue dating despite feeling lonely and discouraged. Now, I'm not saying that this will always be easy, because it's not, but it does keep your life on track. And while it's not a guarantee, most people find that doing something positive helps them feel better. Idea number 2 is, do something else that's positive. There will be times when you can't actively work on your goal. So maybe you want to fall in love and get married, but you weren't able to land a date on the weekend. In this situation, you don't have to stay at home and marinate in your own self-pity. Instead, you can choose another behavior that can help you feel better. So in this case, that might be watching a movie, calling a friend, or exercising. Idea number 3 is, recognize that you're probably not broken. I'm well aware that people have true mental health disorders, and if you're one of those people, I sympathize with your struggle and encourage you to get the help you need. That said, overdiagnosis is a problem. True mental health disorders are often not as common as the mental health narrative leads us to believe. Here's a few examples. Obsessive compulsive disorder, OCD, affects 1% of the population. Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, affects 4% of the population. And even the most common category of mental illness in the United States, anxiety disorders, affects only 18% of the population. Sadly, today's mental health narrative has convinced many people that there's something wrong with negative emotions. As a result, a person feels anxious and automatically assumes they have an anxiety disorder. When this happens, it creates an "I'm broken" identity, which can significantly impact your life. It's no longer uncommon to hear perfectly normal people say things like, "I can't be social because of my anxiety. I know I like a clean room, but that's my OCD." Or, "I can't focus on my homework, I'm so ADD." The point here is simple. Don't automatically assume there's something wrong with you. If you like a clean room, that doesn't mean you have OCD. Chances are you're just a tidy person. And if you're having a hard time focusing on your statistics homework, that doesn't mean you have ADD. Chances are you just find the topic boring. Likewise, there's a big difference between feeling anxiety and having an anxiety disorder, or feeling sad and being depressed. What's important about this message is that once people recognize that it's normal and okay to feel negative emotions, their beliefs change. The identity of "I'm broken" becomes "I'm okay," and that single shift in perspective is incredibly powerful. I can't thank you enough for watching this video, and I hope it was helpful. Now, I am shamelessly trying to grow this channel, so it would mean the world if you could subscribe, like, and share the video. Believe it or not, it takes over 100 hours to make these videos, so any help would be greatly appreciated. If you want more information like this, I highly recommend you check out my app, Aware. Aware is a self-improvement based meditation app, and it has dozens of courses that teach you important skills like how to make better decisions, build good habits, and develop more self-confidence. The app combines all of those lessons with guided meditation, which helps you develop the state of mind and self-awareness needed to apply what you've learned in the lessons. On top of that, you also get the benefits of meditation, like improved focus and sleep, plus a reduction in negative emotions like stress, anxiety, and sadness. So if you like the type of content you see on this channel and self-improvement in general, then I think you'll love Aware. It's available on iOS, Android, and the web, and you can get started today for free with the links below in the description. As a final note, I've also got a list of helpful resources linked below, like a transcript of this video that covers all of the ideas I shared today in a clear and organized format. Thanks again for watching. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you soon.